I'm Carol Ahles. I'm a teacher with the Smocking Arts Guild of America, and I wanted to share some tips with you today to help you have success with narrow hammers. So we're ready just to start with the basic narrow hemming, what's going to make it work. And I'm choosing the hammer I want first, and I know I'm going to have to go over a seam. So I can't get a seam to fit in this narrow of a hammer. So that's why I'm choosing this particular one. It's almost 1/4 of an inch wide. If you have to choose just one hammer to buy, I like to use a 3 or possibly a 4 millimeter. That's a good medium choice. And you'd like to have one that works for straight and zigzag. Then you can use it for almost everything. So that's where we're going. This is the way I start narrow hemming. There are a lot of ways to start, but this works well for almost every case you'll ever need narrow hemming. Fold it over and fold it over again. Okay, and put a pin in to hold it. And don't start at the very corner when you're first just learning how to narrow hem. Well, I'll show you what to do about that in a minute. Just get the feel for how to guide it. So we're putting it on, and I'm checking that this, I checked already when I folded it over, that this hem that's being held by the pin is the size that hammer wants to make. And I'm going to put it under the foot and lower the needle right down where the pin is holding it. I'm not sewing on the pin, I'm just lowering the needle. Sometimes it's hard to see, so I go in from the side on some hammers. Okay. So, and then turn the flywheel toward you a couple of times and stop needle down. Lift the presser foot up and pull the pin out. And you need to feed the cut edge into the hammer. And you should be able to see it going into the curl, and then lower. And then we're just doing a basic straight stitch because this is just basic narrow hemming. But this is what makes the big difference in success. Most instructions for narrow hemming show this, right? There's no control in how much fabric is going into the foot there. We have to be sure that there's fabric against that inside part of the foot on the right, and then this cut edge goes over. The foot is flat and then goes down into a ditch. There's a cut edge here that has to hit right as it goes down into the ditch for having enough fabric in there. So then you start stitching and using 2 fingers. Okay, and let's use needle down. So what tends to happen is it'll start doing this and you don't have enough fabric, and your tendency is to do this to make it have fabric in there, but then you have so much fabric it's going to make the hem and have extra sticking out. Look how much control you have just using your other finger to, okay, if I need more or need less, I can just use these fingers. Let me force it to have too much. You can just adjust while you go. And when you get near the end, it tends to push out a little extra tail. So we get rid of the fabric. At that little corner, we just snip off. There's no tail it can make. There's no fabric there. Okay, now you lose something to hold on to. So I just rest my finger up to the foot and say, okay, you want to push the fabric out. I'm not going to let you. I have my hand against the foot holding the fabric. And then I cut it. There we go. Now we're going to, let me show you what to do if you do need to start at the very edge. And we'll just do that real quick. Just any kind of lightweight, tearaway stabilizer. I just keep bits of this around near my sewing machine. And this time when I do the fold over and fold over again, I can put the stabilizer underneath. Because when you're right at the corner, the feed dogs don't have enough to hold on to. It could be a little bit narrower to be closer to the size that foot wants to make. Okay, so now I can start right at the beginning of that corner. Okay, I'm just going to go a little ways just to show you what this does for us. It'll tear right off afterwards. So now I started at that edge. Needle down, a couple stitches. Turn flywheel toward you always if you're turning it for something like this. Pull the pin out, put the fabric in the curl, and lower the presser foot. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to stop and just show you, just tear off that little bit of stabilizer. See, it gave the feed dogs something good to hold on to, so it doesn't try to push that edge down into the bobbin. So you just get rid of the stabilizer, trim those thread tails, and look. We're going to go around in a circle now. Without seams, it might be around a skirt or a lining of a skirt, or around a round tablecloth, something like that. But if you're doing like the lower edge of that nightgown, a lot of projects, blouses, we have seams we have to go over, and then we have to go around and meet where we started. So I'll show you what's going to make success for going over seams now. Okay, it will have too much bulk if this is just, that would approximate a French seam. So on this fabric, it might be smaller or bigger depending on the fabric, but we fold it over and fold it over again, and it's going to be thick to go through there. So again, we'll figure out the problem and tell it, I'm not going to let you do that. Okay, so first of all, use a shorter stitch near the bottom here, because when you're pulling that through the narrow hammer, it's going to tend to want to pull it open. And I use glue stick on the lower, probably 1/2 inch, while I'm setting up, and I glue this down, because one way you stitch is going with the seam the easy way, but one way wants to go, you're supposed to press the seams back. So this one might get caught with the foot, so I glue it down, or you could zigzag it down, and it'll dry while I'm setting up the machine. Now for a regular seam, which we don't have so much in the smocking world, but in other kind of sewing, we might have it. So we had a short length, and we snip off a little bit of fabric, and glue it in position, and it'll dry real fast. I'm not making it that thick or anything. Okay, so when you have to go all the way around like that, you never want to start at a difficult place on almost any kind of sewing. I like to start toward the back of the garment, and it doesn't have to be exactly in the middle, but you don't want to start right at that seam. Fold over again to fit that hammer, and put a pin. I know this is a lot of detail to remember, but this is all shown with photos in my book, Fine Machine Sewing. Stop needle down with the needle right next going in right next to the pin. Okay, and I'm gonna stop, put the presser fit, pin out, really. Okay. You know, people have pointed out I sometimes do this left-handed because it seems like the cut edge goes into the curl a little bit easier that way. But that will vary with the hammer, whatever works for you. Okay, so we're hemming along. Now we're coming to the seam. Sometimes the glue makes it a little stiff, so I might bend it over a little bit, fold it over like I'm gonna need it to go to make sure it wants to cooperate. Okay, I go a little slower here and say, do what I want you to do. Okay, about here, sometimes it will hang up. And if it doesn't hang up this time, I'll stop next time and show you what to do. See, you get real happy when that happens. Does what you want it to do. Okay, so then we're going to the other, we're going around to the other seam. The whole time I'm watching that the cut edge just stays right there. Okay. Fold over a little bit. Okay. Sometimes it helps also to hold the cut edge up a little bit. Each foot may like something different. Okay, we'll say it hung up right here and didn't want to keep moving forward. Don't keep stitching if that happens, because then you'll get a jam, a big thick blob of thread. But it has that thickness in the foot, and it may be having trouble feeding it forward because the feed dogs are barely have any of the fabric over them to feed. So we use our old stabilizer just underneath. It's not even caught in the stitching. It just gives it something to grab to help move forward. Okay, see, wasn't even caught in the stitching. Okay, so I'm going to go until I'm almost to the place I started, and then take it out of the curl. So just hold it, pull it taut, and it'll usually form a matching hem. Sometimes you don't have to get it under the foot. For some reason this foot isn't lifting, but you can use a skewer to help push if you have to. But see, you want a matching hem. So then you stitch it in place and stop after you overlap. Quarter inch is plenty, not even that much. There we go, we trim our threads. Okay, that one little place I had trouble has a tiny little bit that wasn't caught real cleanly. And you could just undo that much of your stitching and pin it under in place and stitch over it with a regular foot and a straight stitch would fix it. Now it happens to all of us. Little things happen, but it's easy to fix. I hope this has inspired you to try narrow hammers. And I teach on all brands of machines, but if you want to buy one hammer to try it and experiment with it, I would recommend a 3 to 4 millimeter hammer that can be used with straight and zigzag to start with, and then you'll be covered for most applications of light to medium weight fabric. I hope you've enjoyed learning how to teach your narrow hammers that you're the boss to get the results you want.